YouTube, it's your boy FPLK and I'm back here with a brand new video. And today I've got for you my Gameweek 34 team review, as well as my Gameweek 35 team selections and some transfer plans. We also have the big announcement from official FPL regarding blanks as well as double, which we're going to cover in the next slide. I also have a Wildcard 35 draft for you, those who were looking to use a chip this week. So without further ado, let's dive in. So there you have it. As you guys can see, we have the announcement from official FPL in regards to the fixtures being rearranged. We were anticipating a double game week as well as a blank game week for game week 36 and 37. Unfortunately, that was not the case. And one of the reasons being is that Aston Villa did end up losing to Crystal Palace in the FA Cup semi-final. Hence, there was no need for the fixtures to be brought forward to give enough time for Spurs as well as Villa to prepare for this final for FA Cup as well as Europa if Spurs were to get there. Hence, that was not rearranged to game week 36. And then you also have the fact that Man City versus Bournemouth, which we're also anticipating maybe will get moved due to the Villa fixture. But because Villa lost again, that didn't get moved. Instead, it got moved to game week 37 midweek, where there was a slot available for both Man City versus Bournemouth as well as Palace versus Wolves, as Palace did end up going to the FA Cup final. So yeah, it's unfortunate that we'll not have any more blanks as well as double game weeks, especially for myself. For example, I did save my free hit to use it in game week 36 because I was anticipating a big double. Now that didn't happen. I know some of you also saved your wild card as well as bench boost and triple captain and other chips, but it is what it is. That was the risk I've taken, but still nothing less. In this video, I'll be showing you guys a game week 35 wildcard draft as well as a potential free hit 36 draft. I know it's a single game week. I'm still looking to use it there, and it looks quite good, to be honest. It's not too bad. There are quite a few good fixtures, especially considering the fact that Haaland is back in training now. So yeah, now let's move on to my game week 34 team review. So as you guys can see, I actually did take a -8 in game week 34 going into it, as I did save my free hit, and a lot of people that used it, they absolutely smashed it. They're hitting 100 points, 95 points. They're just killing it. Every single asset that could have potentially returned on free hit, they returned. Sessegnon, Trent, Trippier, Livramento, even the Chelsea boys, Cucurella, Sanchez, 9-pointer. You got Sarr, 8 Nori. Every single asset you could think of is returned. Bowen, Salah, Murphy, Diaz, Soboslai. All of these assets that are on free hit, including Cunha, actually returned. And fortunately for me, I did take a -8. And that did obviously, save me somewhat because I'm on a slightly green arrow. So I think my all rank was like 1,350 in the world. And now I'm around 1,305. So it's a small green arrow, but still the game week is not over. I still have Nico Williams left to play. Hopefully if he gets another return, maybe a clean sheet, I'd be in a bit more green arrow. But again, Mbim was left to play as well, so he might smash me. So that could turn into a red arrow. There's still one more game left, so I'm not really counting my chickens yet. So overall, quite happy to be on 90 points after taking a -8. Just to start off with, obviously Trippier, absolute beast, got 2 assists and a clean sheet. And then you got 8 Nori, 11-pointer. I'm glad I've taken a -4 for him. Actually, -8 for him. He's got an assist and a clean sheet. Vardy did get a winning pen, and then he didn't end up converting. So luckily that worked in my favour. And then you got Konate obviously losing his clean sheet. I think I expected that. And Verbruggen, it's 1-pointer. At least he had a fixture, right? And then you got Soboslai, the guy that I regretted picking, has finally got me some points. I'm so pleased with him for this week at least, but other weeks I wasn't too pleased with him. But at least he kept me afloat in a game week where there was a lot of high score, as I said. And then my new transfer in Bowen also returned. Actually, if you look at my transfer plans, I actually bought in Bowen, 8 Nori and Cunha, all 3 returned. And that doesn't happen quite often, so I do consider myself quite lucky there. And then Salah captain ended up with obviously 1 return. Quite disappointed. I thought he would get more returns, to be honest, but still he returned anyways. And then you got Murphy, continues to deliver, absolute beast of an asset. And what can you say about Cunha? I was close to captaining him, but again, I didn't go there because there's too much risk due to the fact that we didn't know if he was going to start or not. There was a lot of rumors that the fans wanted him to get benched. Again, not too much regrets there. I'm glad that I owned him. And then he got Isak with a penalty that he scored versus Ipswich. Overall, quite happy. Hopefully Nico Williams does get something. But yeah, let me know how you guys went. If you didn't free hit, how much your points were. I got killed. Listen, I took a risk with my chip strategy to save a free hit, and it's looking like it's ended up biting me. Although this week I did well without a free hit, it's still some part of me tells me I didn't need to take a -8. I could have had a better goalkeeper that would have returned. I would have saved around 16 or 17 something points on field. But again, it is what it is. That didn't happen. And I took a risk with my chip strategy, and I saved the free hit. And hopefully my free hit will probably reward me in game week 36, just like it has rewarded them in game week 34. So yeah, now let's move on to best wildcard draft for game week 35. So I know a lot of you guys are obviously, on a potential chip strategy where you were looking to, wildcard 35, bench boost 36, due to the fact that there will be double game weeks, but that didn't happen. So this is the wildcard draft I basically quickly drafted. Didn't really put too much thoughts into it, but I think if I was to be on wildcard, I would definitely consider having these type of assets. Again, listen, some of them could be arguable. For example, you don't need to have Murphy, but one of the reasons why I did have Murphy and Rodgers combination is to be able to afford Haaland, and I'm still owning Salah in this wildcard draft, as you guys can see. And the reason why I'm going with this two premium slash three premium with Isak is the fact that Isak is obviously fighting for top four. Same with City, Haaland. I know he's injured there, but he's back in training and he should potentially get some minutes versus Wolves and then potentially start for Southampton in the game of 36. And he's a great captaincy shout. So that's why I have Haaland in there. And then Salah, he's obviously trying to break his records. I think he's like 1 or 2 assists away from breaking the Premier League assist record. Same with I think he's also chasing some goals record as well. So Salah has something to play for. All the Liverpool were somewhat on the beach right now. But again, I think it's a really good option on wildcard that I'd probably consider still having. The fact that you could captain him in game week 38 as well when he plays Palace at home. So didn't want to go with one or the other. I started with the season with both. So if I was on wildcard, I'd probably have both still. Both Salah and Haaland have motivation. Haaland wants to chase his goal records. Salah wants to get his assist records. So they all have motivation. City are also going for Champions League football. Same with Newcastle. So I have players in this team that have something to play for. The likes of Rodgers, they're going for Champions League. And Mbemo is trying to fight for Europe. And obviously City assets as well. The interesting thing about this, I did go on double Forest defense as well as the Everton defense, as they have great fixtures coming up. They're playing the promoted teams, the likes of Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. So I do think those are the defenders you want to be having on your wild card. But yeah, I may have probably missed someone. You probably want to argue maybe you would have Watkins ahead of Chris Wood or Isak. Maybe you could change Chris Wood to Watkins and then Murphy to someone else, maybe a Elanga or Morgan Gibbs-White. But I do think Chris Wood is high sitting in game week 36 when he does play Leicester. So yeah, this is how the draft is looking. Let me know what you guys think. If you're struggling with funds, I do think obviously you can downgrade Murillo or even Guardiola to get a different cheaper defender. That way you can afford this team. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Now let's move on to best buys in game week 35. So for game week 35, this is the list of players I would say the best buys depending on the fixtures and the fact that obviously they have motivation to play for something. So and goalkeeper's option, I would have Pickford. He's got great fixtures, and as well as Sales. One thing I want to shout out, Pickford and Areola actually have a decent rotation. If you look at game week 38, where Pickford does play Newcastle away, you got Areola with Ipswich at home. So if you want to go with that combination, you can do that. And then Pickford in game week, obviously 35, he's got Ipswich, and then he's got Fulham and Southampton. You can play him for all three, but against Newcastle, obviously you could definitely bench him. And then with the defenders, I've got Guardiola, O'Brien, Branthwaite, Nico Williams / Milinkovic, Trippier / Livramento. This is how I'd rank it if I was to buy this week, because that's depending on the fixtures and the fact that obviously, as I said, they have something to play for. And midfielder, you got Bowen and Mbemo, Sade, KDB, Murphy / Barnes, Rodgers, and Alanga / Morgan Gibbs-White. This is the asset that I'll be obviously buying if I was on the shopping market this week for midfielders. For forwards, you got Haaland / Marmoush. Pep did say that Haaland may not start this game week versus Wolves, so Marmoush should be locked to start, as Haaland is just getting back to fitness and obviously, potentially may get some minutes off the bench. So Marmoush should be locked to start this week. But for next week, I do think you should consider, having Haaland when he does play the likes of Southampton, as I think he's a great captaincy option. And then you got Wissa, which is a great buy, by the way, is playing a leg United probably after we're playing Europa game. And then you got Wood, who has Champions League to play for. Also a decent fixture versus Palace away, and then followed up with Leicester and West Ham and Chelsea. I mean, Wood is an absolute lock if I was on wildcard, if I'm being honest. And then you got Watkins if you want to be a bit more differential. Rashford is injured, so Watkins should be nailed to start, and he should get the minutes, potentially on pens as well. And the fixtures were a bit of a mixed bag. I think the 37-38 fixtures are obviously solid with Tottenham and United away, but the Fulham and Bournemouth, I'm not too sure if I like those fixtures for Watkins. That's why I don't have him that high. And then you got Quinnia. Look, the entry point is not great, but Cunha has such a high ceiling, he can score versus anyone, and he's a bonus point magnet, so I have him in there. And then you got Isak. Listen, I got Isak down below because he's playing the likes of Arsenal, and he's got a bit of a tough fixtures coming up with Everton at home. But still, I feel like if you're buying this week, if you don't have Isak, I think Isak is not a bad buy, considering the fact that I actually am thinking to captain him, which I'll get into the next slides later on. But yeah, Isak, obviously, I think still a great buy. And then Evan Nilsson, not a great entry point he's got, I think, Arsenal this week, but again, in the future weeks. Come Game Week 38, he does have Leicester. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know who you guys are buying in the comment section below. Now let's move on to my transfer plans for Game Week 35. So as you guys can see, I am setting Soboslai for Mbemo, who does have United at home. I do think it's a good fixture for him, and I do think he can definitely get 1 or 2 returns. And a lot of people are considering to captain him, which I do not blame them. He's a midfielder, and he can get bonus points, as well as he's got more risky points than compared to some of the strikers, and they do get extra points for scoring a goal. So it completely makes sense to buy Mbemo. I had the exact fund to do this move, and I already bought in Mbemo before he went up in price. So yeah, Soboslai was a nice punt for short term, but right now, I'm good. I think Liverpool's on the somewhat on the beach, and I don't think he has a high ceiling. So I'm just glad that he returned the last week, and now it's time to move on. And Mbemo, welcome. He's got a great fixture run for United at home, Ipswich, Fulham, Wolves, like absolute lock in my team. There are other options, obviously, I could have considered the likes of Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White, but I'm going to get Chris Wood, so I'm not too fond of that. I already have Bowen, so if you don't have Bowen, that's a strong consideration, the fact that he's got Tottenham at home. Obviously, you can get Villa assets if you do fancy them, but I'm not too big on those fixtures that they have in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, now let's move on to my Game Week 35 team selection. So for Game Week 35, I'm lining up with Raya, Guardiola, Nico Williams, and Trippier. The fixtures are quite good for all of them, to be honest, except for maybe I'd argue Raya has Bournemouth at home. That's a bit of a tough fixture, and there will be heavy rotation. So I'm not too high on the clean sheets prospect for Arsenal. And Guardiola, Wolves at home, he's got high ceiling. I mean, hopefully if he plays, as one of the fullbacks, he could probably go up and then maybe get an attacking return or score a set piece goal. Recently, he's been playing in the centre-back position, and his attacking threat has dropped quite significantly. However, on the other hand, with Nico Williams and Trippier, their attacking threat is insane. When they bomb forward, you always expect them to get either goals or assists. Especially with Trippier last week, he's got a mega haul, 15 points. So let's hope we can continue the same returns. And then you got in midfield, Salah, Bowen, and Mbemo, Murphy. Absolutely love this midfield. I think this midfield is crazy. I know it's template, but I don't think a lot of people will have this midfield unless they're spending 2-3 transfers this week. I do like the fact that obviously a lot of people have dropped off Murphy and they're not quite high on him. And I do like Murphy versus Brighton. Brighton has been conceding goals for fun, especially on the right side. So let's see. And the forward position, you got Cunha versus City, not ideal. But again, Cunha is that type of player that can score in big games, and we've seen it over and over again. If he gets a return, he gets all the BPS. So yeah, hopefully he can get something. Then you got Isak, who does have the captaincy armband for me. He's got Brighton away, which I'll get into the next slide as to why I think Isak is the best captain this week. But yeah, to me, it just makes sense because Brighton are conceding goals for fun. And I do feel like this fixture suits him because of the fact that I feel like this game is going to be end-to-end. And in those type of games, you expect Isak to find the space and exploit it and potentially get big goals. And last but not least, you got Marmoush. He's got Wolves at home. Another somewhat captaincy shout, but I'm not a big fan myself considering the fact that I've been burnt in a double game week where I did captain him and they didn't score at all. And he had 2 games to score. So I'm not too big on Marmoush, and a lot of people are considering for captaincy. I do not blame you if you do. The fixture is there. However, for my captaincy ranking, I would go with Isak 1, Mbemo 2, and Bowen 3rd as of currently. And then on bench, you've got Verbruggen, Aït-Nouri, Konate, and Saka. The reason why I got Saka on the bench is because I don't think he's going to start versus Bournemouth. That's why I do have him on the bench. And then you got Konate versus Chelsea away. I think Chelsea has a lot to play for, so there's definitely goals in that game. I do see Chelsea scoring. Would I be shocked if Liverpool keep a clean sheet? I wouldn't, but I expect Chelsea to score considering the fact that they're going for top 4 and they have a lot to play for, and Liverpool just won the Premier League, so they might be somewhat, hangover, although Konate and Salah doesn't drink. But yeah, and then you got Aït-Nouri on my first bench, Man City away. It makes sense why I'm benching him. I don't see a clean sheet, to be fair, although he has an attacking threat. So let me know what you guys think of this team. Leave a comment down below which players you're bringing in. Are you bringing in Bowen or Mbemo or KDB or Isak or Cunha? Let's now move on to the best captain for Game Week 35. So as you guys saw in the previous slide, I did have the captaincy armband on Isak, and these are the reasons why. The reason why I think Isak is probably the best captain. Number one, his form. Obviously, a lot of people questioning his form. He hasn't scored in the last 3 or 4 games from open play. However, he did score a pen versus Ipswich, but still, as a pen, he didn't score from open play. But a lot of people are missing the fact that he did have the most big chances in the last 4 game weeks out of all the players. Obviously, he also is first for minutes per shot out of all forwards/midfielders. He's also first for shots in the box out of all the midfielders/forwards. So these are the stats that obviously are quite nice. And if you see that, these are obviously signs of potential returns coming in, although he's not been hitting the form recently from open play. Another stat I would like to point out is that Newcastle attack is first for big chances created. So that means he's getting a lot of chances. And then 3rd for open play chances as well. 2nd for goal attempts just behind Liverpool. And then you got 3rd for XG non-penalty. Also, Brighton considered 24 chances down the left flank in the last 4 game weeks. And the target zone for those areas, obviously the likes of Murphy as well as Bruno Guimaraes and Trippier will be looking for Isak in that central position. And I do think there'll be a space to operate for Isak and exploit and potentially get a big hole. And these are the reasons why I'm looking to captain him. I mean, obviously, Mbeumo was a really good shout, and I don't blame you guys, considering the fact that they're probably going to play a B team for Manchester United. But again, I do think our defense is quite solid, so that's why I'm not too keen on that move. And another thing is going for Mbeumo is the fact that he's at home and Isak is away. But again, I do fancy Isak this week. I think he has a higher ceiling, although his minutes are not as great as Mbeumo, and he's away from home. So now let's move into the chart from FPL Meerkat, where he does show a graphic where teams mostly concede their goals from for the likes of Brighton, United, as well as Tottenham, so that we can make a better decision on who do we think is the best asset to own / captain in the coming week. So as you guys can see, for Brighton, they conceded a lot of chance in central position as well as from the left flank, and you can see they considered total 55 goals. They have won 1 goal and they consider 7 penalties and 1 free kick. So the fact that obviously Isak is on pen, that's also good news. And they're considering a lot of goals as of recently. And especially most of those red dots you guys can see are in central position where the striker would be. So I do fancy Isak for one of those reasons. Obviously, this does further justify the captaincy for Isak. So for Manchester United, you guys can see again, the strikers are probably going to be eating the likes of Wissa. We're considering a lot of chance centrally. And Mbeumo does not seem to come centrally too often, especially when Sade does play. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not too big on him for this week captaincy, because he does operate on quite far on the right wing and sometimes he does drop deep, and that is what putting me off captaining him. And Wissa, I mean, look, he can probably eat this week. Like even Sade, they go centrally a lot, and Mbeumo is creating the chances. I think Mbeumo probably will be more of an assist threat this game rather than goal threat. But again, I think he's such a talented player; he can still score, and I wouldn't be shocked. But personally, I think Isak has a higher ceiling, and he's playing the worst defense this week. So as you guys can see, for Spurs again, they're also considering a lot of their goals centrally. To be honest, all over the position they're considering in the box. And Bowen, I mean, look, if you're obviously chasing, I think you could definitely take a punt there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like at least 2 or 3 returns. But again, at the same time, West Ham don't score too many goals, but Spurs do like to leak a lot of goals as well. So Bowen, based on the graphics, I think he could absolutely feast. He does, play striker sometimes. He also drop to the wing as well, so he can play in any positions. He does have the freedom to go into the striker position or move to the wing. And I do fancy him this week. I think Bowen can definitely feast. So yeah, these are my 3 favorite options. As I said, these are charts that you can obviously use to help you make your decision on who you think is the best captain this week. I personally would say for me, Isak, and Mbeumo and Bowen, as I said. So yeah, now finally I'll be showing you guys my potential Game Week 36 free hit draft, even though there is no double game week. So as you guys can see, for Game Week 36, I've briefly looked at this. This is not my final draft, but just briefly looking at it, the players that I'll potentially be having. Look, I like United that week. We got West Ham at home, and West Ham don't score too many goals, and we're at home. Hopefully, if you do play our first team, I do see a clean sheet there. And then you got obviously double for us defense. We've got Leicester at home. I'm expecting clean sheets and potentially attacking return as well. And then got Guardiola with Southampton. It just makes sense, unless I prefer another City attacker. But it's hard to predict who's going to start, to be honest. And in midfield, you got Eze and Mbeumo and De Bruyne as well as Sade. So I've got 2 midfielders that are playing a promoted team in Ipswich. Both Mbeumo and Sade has Ipswich away. Although I would have liked that Fish to be at home, but still I do think that Brentford can score versus these promoted teams for fun. We saw what they did versus Leicester away and Southampton. So again, I think Mbeumo and Sade could definitely feast. The Sade spot is not locked, but I think that could be either Bruno or even maybe Palmer. But again, depending on their form, I may consider going there. I do have enough money to go there all the way up to Palmer or Bruno. And then you got forward position, Haaland, Cunha and Wood. I don't currently own Haaland and I don't currently have Wood. So these are 2 players that obviously I'll be bringing in, as well as I don't have Eze. So this is the 3rd player that I'll probably should be having. So there's quite a few players that I don't own, and there are quite a few players that I don't want to play in that week, i.e. Salah versus Arsenal, and then obviously Saka versus Liverpool. And obviously my Arsenal defense I wouldn't want to play as well. So this week it does make sense for me to free hit, and it does look quite strong, to be honest. The only spot that puts me off is the Sade spot. Maybe I go for a Villa mid, but again, that depends. They're playing Bournemouth. It's not really a strong fixture, is it? So look, it's not the best considering the fact there's no double, but it's not too bad either. Hopefully if I do use my free hit 36, I can somewhat match these free hit 34s, because they absolutely smashed it. So yeah, that'll be it. Let me know what you guys think of this free hit 36 draft, as well as what chips do you have left and what are your chip strategy moving forward, due to the fact that there won't be any more double as well as blank. And make sure to tune into my deadline stream tomorrow, which is Friday, the deadline by the way, 6 p.m. and I'm gonna see you guys next week. Peace out.